I don't know if you'd be happy for me to ask questions or not. So Wayne, if you want to come and sit just here. And Bizzy. Where's Linden? Do you want to come and join us? I won't put you on the spot too much. So there's people like TDK, hello, I'm Catherine, who we've not met before. There's still so many people to interview for this project. And I just wanted to ask each of you, really, like, what it's meant to be involved. Why did you get involved in the first place? And what you think maybe the legacy might be. So start with, who wants to start?
Well, for me, I was into hip hop, and I just love music, and I met him in the swim bars playing arcade games, and he taught me how to build tunes. I got into it because of him.
Because of Bizzy, exactly.
Yeah, because of Bizzy, and that's where it led. That's where it started. And it's been forever like that. I've never strayed from it. I've forever stayed on it. That's all it's been.
So I should really introduce you, shouldn't I? So TDK producer, DJ.
And yeah, ex-DJ.
DLux, DJ producer. Yeah. And Bizzy B.
Busy person.
Very hard to pin this man down, DJ producer, and Linden C, DJ and producer also. So all these guys are from the borough and have been involved in one way or another in the project. Wayne, would you mind saying what it's meant to you to be involved? You've been very involved.
Yeah, to be involved in something, it meant a lot for me. Like T, coming up, I'm from Linden in East London, raised West Ham Road. And again, in the 80s, for me, being a youngster, I was very much into hip-hop music, but it was very much an American thing. So what we were part of was very much UK. And like T, I got into, I was DJing, but into the music making through this guy, Bizzy B, Brain Records. So it was very much, we'd kind of make the music and do the stuff. It was very new, didn't know what we was doing. And what this today means to me, I'll be honest with you, I'm a bit of a hoarder. So I still have all the old equipment and all the old stuff. So it's kind of vindication for me that I've got my hoarding condition. It's now in a museum, so I feel kind of vindicated. So that's what it means to me.
He's got the Bizzy side of it. Bizzy's a hoarder as well.
I'm a bit of a hoarder.
I'm the other side of it. Where I'm technology, I have to go forward with everything. I've got all the other side of it. I have to have the monitors. I have to have, like, as soon as Cubase 12 comes out, got that. So I have to carry on sort of thing.
So it was kind of very important to kind of be involved and support history and things that we don't consider to be like relevant history, seeing that people have interest in it. And again, because you said you needed some equipment, I was like, yeah, I've got tons of that. And storage, we run out of storage.
Well, my name's Brian Johnson, aka Bizzy B. I started out back in 1989, roughly, don't quote me on it because it's a long time ago now, making, just messing about on the turntables, DJing, obtained a Commodore Amiga, messed about with some 4-tracks, made some music, got introduced to the dungeons where legendary Linden C here. I believe you gave me a break up there, didn't you? Gave me a break in the dungeons. Carried on my production, started Brain Records, and I've been working my butt off ever since. I'm still working my butt off now. I came from very humble beginnings. I came from a broken family, struggled growing up, didn't have anything, left school early because I couldn't afford to a pair of trainers or a jacket or even a haircut for that matter. And struggled through life just working my butt off. So to be a part of this project and see all of the hard work that that we put in, finally people are actually taking an interest in what we're doing. It's quite emotional for me. And the first time I saw the Sweet Harmony and everything on the wall and stuff like that, it was amazing to see, because we work really hard. We put in a lot of time, a lot of effort into our craft and what we do, and as little as it seems to the world, to us it's big and it's massive and it's real close to our heart. We're super passionate about what we do. And I've got so much I could say right now, but I'll be honest with you, I've been live streaming till 2 o'clock in the morning and it's not flowing as it normally would. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much for everything you've done. It means a lot.
Thank you. Linden?
Where do I begin? What does it mean to me?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what, it blew me away when I met Catherine. She came down to Brixton, came to my place, and she really knew so much, and she'd done her research, and we just sat, never met before really, and we just sat for like 2 hours just talking, and I don't know, it was funny because when the final result of this thing came out, it was just like some of the shit I'd said. I was like,
Quoted and requoted.
And we were just sitting there talking and got on so well, and it was just like, I don't know, I must have just opened up and just like. But no, it is great because, like Bizzy said, we did all work hard and we did all put there's a few people missing here. Derek Boland's one of them. You all know how I feel about Derek, and it's hard when I talk about things like this because he's not here. Tim Strudwick is another one.
It's supposed to be you.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be
Yeah.
somewhere.
But we, I don't know, we took liberties back then, and it was all.
No better back then.
No, we just don't know. We couldn't. Froggy was the one that started it all off for us, and I think we just took it to another level with all the house parties and just breaking into warehouses, and then came the record shops, then came the pirate radio.
Yeah. With the steaming into your record shop.
Yeah. So it was nice that you put this together so all the young people could get to see what we actually done.
And hopefully influence them. Oh, that's my doorbell. So I'm holding the mic, it doesn't quite reach over to these guys. Has anyone got any questions for Big Lovely? Actually, I just want to say myself that I really hope this is a celebration of really the hard-working people and how much work you put in, because it is incredible the amount of people would sacrifice, and nobody came from sort of money, the amount of work that you put into making a really important British cultural scene, really has changed British music landscape, and to be recognised for that is really important. Has anyone got any questions they want to ask?
So a lot of you said that it came from your love of hip hop. So what was the transition from hip hop to there? Because that's obviously you got the sampling and I remember Derek B played at Pastures. I never forget that with the Cookie Crew in Linden, by David Slade.
The youth Pastures was. You don't remember where Pastures was?
Where's Pastures?
It was Lincoln, down the same road as Lincoln's.
Derek B lived round the corner from me.
You know where Lincoln's was, man? It was the road next to Lincoln's.
Leytonstone.
Yeah.
What you said?
For me, it was when they started putting the hip hop beats with the house beats. That was it for me.
Jerry.
And then once they put the B line on top of that was all over.
Jerry should be up there.
Yeah.
Jerry's got stories.
Jungle techno.
For me,
Go on, sorry.
for me it was like like what T said, it was identification, I think, really, because we were into hip hop and we were relying on like American music and imports and stuff. And when I was playing a lot of US music, and then we had I was quite young, still young. I was too young to get into some of the raves that were taking place at the time.
For real?
And but it was like seeing a culture which was very UK, so I could identify with it more. So rather than me looking towards DJs and producers from America, I used to hang around an estate called Cattle Estate. So I was into what I was doing, then I got told there's another guy like you, and his name's Brian, he lives on this floor there. So it was like, right now there's another person that likes that like me, and he's UK, and you know what I mean? He had a studio, I didn't have a studio, so it was my chance to do what I thought, say, the Americans were doing with our style. We just sped up hip hop beats, which were breaks, samples.
I used to do all the script. Because there's a guy as well that who taught me how to mix. My friend Toki, Alan Toner, and we used to, like kids, we used to sit there all day trying to do the spin backs, scratching the mixing. We used to be there all the time.
So really,
doing that all the time, man.
that was it. So all we thought would happen is like we'd make a track, I'd make a tape, I'd bring it to Bizzy's, and then we thought we might play it at a party. And if you're lucky, someone might play it on radio. And that was it. That was it.
For me, it was, I was into a bit of DJing and mixing from the early hip hop days, doing a lot of parties around Basildon, Raquel's night spot, just little slots, nothing significant in that sense. And then I got into got into the acid house scene, playing music on the acid house scene. And a friend of mine sort of came to me, heard my mixing, and he said, "Man, you'd make a wicked acid house DJ. There's not many people that can mix like that I've heard when I go out raving." So I started getting into the sound of the acid house music, and I really loved it. And ended up, fast forward, ended up into the dungeons through Linden C, DJ down there. And when I first heard Linden C mixing, I was blown away because he was a real good mixer. And at those times, in my opinion, he is a really good mixer. He is a really good mixer. And at those times, I was really blown away because there wasn't a lot of DJs that was mixing on his level in terms of, I did a set, he gave me a break, I come on, I used to do little spin backs, boom, put the tune on. And he comes on, and he does a double spin back, which is, in my scene, is impossible. Boom, drops on beat. Up to this day, I still can't figure out how you did that. But he'd done it a few times. And that's when I knew this guy is serious. He knows his stuff. And that's what really got me into the music. One thing led to the next, the music progressed, and we got into hardcore, we got into jungle. Yeah, and that's how I got into it.
Another question?
I find this very moving because as a stepfather of Derek B.
It's Jim, by the way, it's Derek B's stepfather. Derek,
I'd just like to say that Linden, Tim Strudwick, and Derek were like brothers. And they worked together as young kids, pulling little things together, and eventually start to move along. But I just think Derek, if he was here today, would be so proud of everybody's contribution. Because towards the end of his career, he was saying, people were asking him to come back. And he said, "Look, I'm not coming back. The people around here are too good." So he had that sort of humility at the end that I found surprising, because he was very confident, outgoing, good socialist. But he would have loved this one, because whilst he was a Woodford boy, the very first event happened in Leytonstone, I believe, Was it Leytonstone Park? Yeah. And so, he was all around the East End before he hit anywhere else. You talk about Canning Town, Dougie's, that was another one. It came through.
Is that Newham?
That was new. And I think
Beyond that
the only last thing I want to say here is perhaps it's a greater London issue. And I think you could make it an even bigger project.
Yeah,
Looking around the whole metropolis, you know, the way it impacts.
Yeah, I mean there are quite a lot of projects across the country actually where people are doing similar, of like looking at the local scenes, and it's interesting to see the differences and similarities between them, all very kind of like got their own identity.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, sure. So my question, as you're saying with like the birth of jungle and like Shut Up and Dance and Rage, Heaven, all this sort of the club nights that were going, and basically, do you think it's possible nowadays with the internet and this like fluidity of like genres and like the speed that people are putting out music, for there to be a genre coming out that's pure and like pioneering in the same way that like jungle, garage, grime, dubstep, like do you think there's room for that now, or is it always going to be like an evolution of something else, or
Got to be something come along.
Yeah.
There has to be something come along, otherwise if this is it, it's just going to be a name after a name after a name, and it's like...
Do you think it'll be as authentic?
No?
Yeah.
No. Go on, sorry.
No, go on. I think that it will be. It's still happening. It is happening, and even look, I'll be honest. Like, as from a production point of view, what we were making in the late '80s and early '90s, let's not get it twisted. We were sampling other people's music, so that shows you that there was a scene before us. I can talk about 1986 onwards. And what we were doing in the early 90s with jungle, but we recognised then that we were looking, I was particularly looking at my elders and what the elders were doing in terms of the sound systems. I followed the sound system culture, reggae and soul and funk, and then put my spin on it. But they were elders to me, just like after I'd done jungle, I had a brief spell in garage. I have a radio station called Deja Vu FM. Deja Vu FM is known as a station that was quite instrumental in grime, yeah? But it was grime, it was garage, it was jungle, but we can't forget about the guys that came before us as well. And as the gentleman over there said, it is a bit of bittersweet because there are so many people that could be here. There's just 4 of us, but we're a tip of the iceberg for many more people that, quite frankly, Catherine tried her best, just didn't get a chance to speak to. So there's a lot of,
so many,
there's still,
women.
It's a big thing. You speak to one person, and that one person will lead you to another 50.
Yeah.
And it's like, who do you speak to?
It's
never ending. But you have to do it. You've started something. You have to do it. But there's definitely more. There's more music, and there's music still evolving.
I think as long as people experiment in the studio with different tempos as they do, and
the fact of technology as well.
And the fact of technology as well. Music is always going to be evolving into different styles. And what I found that over the years is like somebody would make something new, like a new style. Take a little bit of this and mix it with a bit of that, and then bring out this record. And sometimes that record can start a whole new genre simply because it's that different from everything else that's going on. And it's like it gets accepted, but then you get a movement that follows that genre.
And I have to do one of them so I can make all the money. that's basically what it is.
And then it carries on. You got jungle, you got house, you got breakbeat house, there's so many different hardcore breaks. There's so many different subgenres that come from one sound. So there's always room for experimentation. Otherwise, it will get boring, I think, if everybody's just onto the one thing all the time and never experiment.
Right, shall I take a couple more questions? Go for it.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask you, gentlemen, back in the day, you're cutting your teeth, you're going to make do, you're begging, borrowing, stealing, perhaps equipment, this, that and the other. Have you got any funny examples of what you had to do to make a party work? You might have been under some serious pressure with some nasty equipment or whatever like that. you guys have got to have some beautiful stories about what you did just to make it work.
I let Bizzy get on the dungeons once as well.
Go on, someone else, because I've got loads.
Alright, I'll give an example of learning to mix. So I managed to obtain a couple of these Garrard turntables. I don't know if anyone remembers the Garrard turntables. There were these little kind of 12 volt, low voltage ones that wouldn't electrocute you if you plugged them into like a power supply. And being into a little bit of electronics, I was a bit geeky with the old electronics. I always wanted a pair of SL1200s, but they were just too pricey for anywhere near imagining my budget. So what I did was I got a pair of what you call variable resistors, and I wired them into these decks, and I was able to change the speed of the turntable by reducing and increasing the power. And it was those turntables that I was actually able to pull off my first ever mix, because mixing as a DJ back then is not the same as having sync buttons on a pair of turntables these days where it does all that for you. Back then we had to listen on the headphones, and we were kind of you had to train yourself to be a human synchronizer, making sure that these two tracks were together. And by me being able to slow tracks down and speed them up, that's what gave me the ability to do it. And I was able to learn to mix from there. One more incident was I remember one time DJing down the dungeons, and we had a little sound system set up in there. And a hard lesson that I learned, we had a really high-powered amplifier. This amplifier just drew, it was, kilowatts of power, if you like, whatever. Anyway, the power cable was really thick for this power amplifier, which was pretty unusual because it drew so much power. So me trying to cut the budget, I went out and bought a pound shop cable, extension cable, and plugged it in. It was all powering and sounding sweet, 18-inch bass bins playing. Gone over to the bar to have a chat with someone. Someone said, Bizzy, the lead's on fire, the lead's on fire. Luckily enough, the dungeons is all concrete and everything, so just switching the power off was enough for it to ease itself down. And there you go.
The whole there was one summer night when it was banging down the dungeon. Yeah! And the ceiling was just sweating to the point where I'm trying to DJ. When I'm looking on the record, it's just dripping with water. So it's just getting it's just going around, it's just going. And I think in the end it was sweating, so I don't know if you remember, it's just sweating down on all the wires, and he gets it. And then I just thought, hey, that's enough for me. There were stories down the dungeons.
And for me, I've done quite a bit of, I can say it now because I don't do it no more. Just to make sure that I was obviously doing a lot of pirate radio. So seeing the pictures and stuff and knowing the area's changed, of course, but there was, as you could imagine, a lot of antics involved with doing pirate radio and getting into blocks, which I never did, by the way, any cameras. I didn't do any. But everything was very DIY then, but it was local. We were just looking at it from a local thing. If anyone said they could see 30 years down the line and know that we're sitting here talking about, no. It's just very, very, very DIY.
I just want to add one more thing as well, just thought of something. Most important, fundamental thing. So, back in the day, to make a record, let's say, or make music, in theory, you needed a £30,000 recording studio to make any kind of music, because it was all the pop songs and big studios and bass player of Wham and blah 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 and blah blah blah. So my first kind of encounter with something that you could make productive music on was in Errol's Computers in Walthamstow. It doesn't exist anymore, for those who don't know, but it was an old computer shop, used to sell all the old Mastertronic games, and I walked past this computer that had vocals coming out of it. It sounded like a radio, and I was like, where's that music coming from? And they said, it's over there. They said, it's coming out of that computer, and it was a Commodore Amiga computer at the time. And the budget of the Commodore Amiga was about £300, which was more kind of reachable. And it had software called Music X, and later on they released another piece of software called Octamed. And Octamed was a fully fledged production studio, but it was 8-bit. And for those who don't know what 8-bit is really crunchy, not so high quality sound. And we used to use that. And by the way, my Mrs. Tasha, she gave me the money to buy that. So I got making music on that, and we was always struggling to get it sounding high quality. But what we didn't realise later on down the line is that 8-bit crunchy sound was one of the key elements and the key characteristics of the sound that we were making for all those years, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's an example of like making stuff work. You know, we ended up with a record label releasing stuff with this crunchy sound.
Yeah. The actual computer is in the exhibition. One of the original Commodore Amigas that a lot of the tracks that I made with Bizzy was made on the computer that's in the in that glass cabinet in there. That's the actual real one.
But in the end, we found out we didn't have enough memory, so we had to buy 2 of them.
That's right.
And then when we was building tunes, we used to have to stand like that and then.
That's right.
Do them both together, so the tune was great.
Because they never used to synchronise together.
So we had to like sit there
Start
together.
at the same time.
Start at the same time to like play the tune. You know what I mean? Things like that. So we'd have enough channels to put all the samples on for one tune. So it used to go until the Akai came out.
Yeah.
All right. Any anecdotes, Linden, before I bring it to a close?
No, go on. No, I've got a good one actually.
Okay, go for it.
But it's not in Waltham Forest. We had a warehouse party in Southwark Bridge Road, and Joey J, Norman J's brother, he had a sound system called Good Times. So we've set up this warehouse party. We've got like about 1,000 people trying to get into it. And then I think Paul Anderson or some DJ comes along, puts a record on and blows up the sound system. Or not blows up the sound system, trips the electric from the sound system. This whole floor goes out. And I can't remember who it was, but we had to climb out the window to the next floor, drop all these wires down, and we prayed for 8 hours that this next floor wouldn't trip, and it just had all these like leads coming through these broken windows. And, like, so that's one that comes to mind.
You made it work somehow.
We made it work.
Okay, I think that's probably, unless anyone's got a really burning question, that's probably it. Yeah, thank you so much all for coming, really appreciate it. So the exhibition's until October 2nd, spread the word. And yeah, the bar here, if you want to drink afterwards, we finish at 5. There's the Nag's Head pub round the corner as well.
Right, that's it, everyone out, pub.
Oh, I've got to get this bit in. One sec, while she's here. She's helping me write a book.
Yeah, and I really have to as well. Catherine has put in so much work.